Welcome to Don't Get Me Started, January 6th, 2021. Today was a crazy day for America. We witnessed the Capitol Police in D.C. basically stand down to groups that are known to be full of white nationalists, Nazis, white supremacists, fascists, and basically just let them into the Capitol while this was going on, where the House and the Senate were just confirming the Electoral College votes, which is something that has gone off without a hitch over the last 100 some years. Um, and Trump today, at earlier in the day, had called for a Save America rally where all of these Nazis and white nationalists and people waving Confederate flags showed up, and he told them in the least sheathed call to violence you could possibly ask for. Just he used all these words like fighting and traitors and stolen, and said, if you want to take your country back, let's go for a walk up Pennsylvania Avenue. And I watched the whole thing today, and I was honestly expecting a lot more people to be shot and killed by what I was seeing going on. I thought it was going to be a horrific scene, and just one of those freakish days in American history. But come to find out, they said a lot of the DC police and Metro police were off today, perchance. Just for some reason, they were all off today. And so they used that as an excuse for why they didn't have enough people, even though, I mean, it's Washington, D.C. There's 20 different ways. And not just Washington, D.C., literally the capital of the country, the absolute epicenter. If another country wanted to damage us, and, the most symbolic way possible, this would be the building to blow up right here. This is where everybody's at one time. And the fact that, this is post 9/11. This is massive surveillance state. We saw an entire year of police brutalizing and running COINTELPRO on BLM protesters, and Black Lives Matter protesters are randomly being killed and found in burnt cars, and they were beating up the mothers showing up to support. They beat up the clergy and gassed the shit out of them, and a bunch of people with Nazi and Confederate flags show up on the steps of the Capitol, and the police, literally, there's videos of the police opening the gates, letting them in, and waving them in. And then afterwards, when they're coming in, there's no police inside. If we've seen multiple times in the past, random people having a minor freak out outside the Capitol building, and police surround their car and kill them in their car with their baby in the back seat. Like, the level of security around DC is so tight that you have no clue how impossible it should be to actually be able to pull off what happened today. The only way that happened today, the things that happened today could have happened, was if they were allowed to happen. And that's exactly what happened. This 84 or 82 or 84% of American law enforcement officers voted for Trump. Like, they are a cult. They stand for not defending you or I. It's just a cushy job that people who sucked at high school and are total douchebags and basically peaked in their fucking sophomore year playing football just had nothing else to do. And this is the best thing for them, because they can't think. They're great at doing what they're told, and as long as they have a good salary and a pension, anyone who challenges that is a threat. See, the crowd showed up with, the Blue Lives Matter flags, which are just Nazi flags in disguise. But that's what we watched today. Was what happened today. No one was overwhelmed. That wasn't that big of a crowd. It was literally the police stood down because they were okay with what was going on, because American law enforcement is made up of MAGA chuds. That's what we got today. And now we've got Fox News and everybody trying to say, oh, it was Antifa infiltrators. They're starting that talk. Like, Antifa would be there today. There was no reason for Antifa to be there today. Both parties are fascist. It's not like Antifa is going to show up to defend Joe Biden. Joe Biden's a fascist too. He's incorporated some of the most pro-fascist policies in American history. He wrote the goddamn crime bill that put millions of black men in jail for no reason. Like, don't get started on how bad of a person Joe Biden is right now. Like, that's another whole conversation that we definitely need to be having. But today is ridiculous. Today almost felt like this is going to sound hyperbolic. I'm just saying more to how my experience to how today went, basically, in that the only thing that I noticed going on today was our country seemed like it was under attack, and the only person I really talked to about it was my mom. And that's basically how 9/11 was. Like, my mom woke me up by texting me, our country's under attack, or it looks like it. And then I turned on the TV and had to watch that whole shit show. Yeah, today was just one of those days where it was like, we were honest. I was honestly like, who knows what's going to happen right now? It seems like what's going on at the state capitol, there's no way that, like, they're at the capitol. There's no way the police are gonna allow this. Like, I know that the police are on their side, but this is absurd. Like, they're allowing people to storm the literal capital of the country, and that's supposed to be unacceptable. And now we see, after the fact, all the videos of cops being okay with it and being chummy. Just, we know. And this is something that was reported 100 years ago during many other uprisings and fightings with police, or with the government, where fascist policies were being enabled, and a mob was incited, and the police stood down and let the mob do their thing. And it's because the concept of policing is a fascist concept. We don't need people to physically fucking spank us for getting outside, for doing things that are, against stupid laws. Like, if you want to have a security force to handle a major security threat in your community, you can always, have something similar to a SWAT that only needs to be called out if someone gets super fucking crazy. But those people shouldn't be part of this occupation of the community. The way American policing has gotten out of control, not out of control. American policing was designed to be out of control. It was designed to just be an oppressive force. American policing isn't here to keep you safe. They're not here to catch a crackhead that's robbing you, even though that's always the line they love to use. Unless, of course, that crackhead's black, they could beat the shit out of him and then throw him in jail for 20 years, which will provide the state about $1 million worth of income over the course of his life, because that's what the state's going to have to pay to house him, to the private corporation that is housing him. The whole concept of American policing today should be completely exposed, is the point of this rant. The fact that we spent the whole year watching so many innocent, peaceful, people trying to go out of their way to show how hard they were not doing anything to cause harm or property damage, literally just sitting down in the street and saying, we're going to sit here and that's all we're going to do. And the police beating the shit out of them and shooting them, beating the shit out of the independent journalists and corporate journalists even. Like, the police were off the chain the last couple years, and they've all been enabled by, not enabled, incited by Trump. There's tons of leaked Discord chats and Reddit communities of law enforcement officers who've been like begging for the last 4 years for Trump to quote unquote, take off the chains, let us, go nuts on these protesters. They're asking for it. That's how that whole community thinks. You're not allowed to be a cop if you're not a psychopath who wants to beat up innocent people. And this is, today we saw what law enforcement really, like, that's supposed to be the most heavily policed, most secure place in the whole freaking country. And what we saw today showed that it is entirely a selective process how the rule of law is applied to certain groups of people.